I'm Andrew Patterson from interest.co.nz. Welcome to another in our business success series. And today I'm with Murray Holdaway, Chief Executive of Vista Entertainment. Murray, welcome.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the origins of this business and how it began.
Yeah, a group of us had a software company back in the 90s, and for some of the older viewers remember the Kerajodian organisation, and we were working with them on providing them with financial solutions, and at the time they asked us to build some cinema-specific solutions for them. They kind of got tied up in the whole 1987, 1990 sort of crash and went out of business. But when Village entered the market to build multiplexes in the early to mid-90s, we connected with a whole lot of people we'd been working with at Kerajodian, and they were now working for Village, and they asked us to build a system around ticketing for modern multiplexes, and that's where it all started off, really.
Of course, we normally associate the cinema sector with all things the US, so intriguing that a small New Zealand company was able to kind of spot this initiative here and build a global business from New Zealand.
You know, I guess sometimes you have a little bit of luck. We were building this software around the mid-90s, and we just happened to be strike that time when we could build a ticketing system with a full Windows sort of graphical user interface. And almost all of the competing systems out there in the market were built around DOS and were quite old-fashioned looking. So before we'd even finished building the application for Village, we were starting to get inquiries from around the world saying, hey, we hear you're building a Windows system. And so we kind of realized we had a potential resaleable item before we'd actually even finished it. And it wasn't, like a lot of software, it wasn't really built to be a product. It was built for a customer. But once you'd finished it, you realized, hey, there was other customers who were after the same thing. In terms of you know, getting into the worldwide market and dominating that market, it's you know, it's something that happened over time. It's you know, it's been 15 years now, so it's not something that happened overnight.
Now you handle all the aspects from a cinema, everything from the ticketing to the snack bar and virtually everything else in between.
Yeah, sure. So one of the other things we did back early then was Village had this vision that they wanted to have the ability to have one single point of sale which could sell food and beverage and tickets. Back then it was very common to have a box office and then buy your tickets there and then move off to a candy bar, and often a lot of the cinemas were running two completely different systems to do that, one for ticketing, one for candy bar. So we integrated the two, and that was created a lot of interest. But also, you know, just people get and think, you know, it's really simple to do cinema ticketing. You know, we've got 115 staff, a development team of like 40 something people, and they say, well, how hard can it be? You know, but actually, what's going on is there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than perhaps you might realise when you just sort of walk into the cinema. So if a customer walks into the cinema, they'll buy a ticket. The person serving them will be using our software. They might have bought their ticket on the internet. That's our software. They may buy their ticket at the ATM. That's our software. If they looked around the cinema, they'd see some signage, some digital signage. That's running off our software. The usher may scan their ticket with a device. That's our software. So there's a whole lot of front of house stuff that's pretty obvious. But there's also a whole lot of back of house stuff like cash control, staff scheduling, film programming, and of course cinemas are a bit like, you know, big retail chains. They exist in circuits, and so there's a whole bunch of software at the head office which is giving the people at the corporate level control over what's happening at the cinema, consolidating all the cinema results, and, you know, having a look at how a certain film is likely to perform, so all this predictive analysis and everything. So what we say is it's kind of like an ERP system for cinema.
Because from a cinema's point of view, obviously, you know, they're effectively renting out seats every night, aren't they? So they have to get the maximum yield on that.
That's right, and so we do have a lot of, you know, information that we present to a group of people in the cinema which are generally called the programming team, and they are making decisions all the time on whether perhaps to run a particular film for another week, or perhaps introduce a new film and drop that film. And so they're really looking at how they maximise the return on those seats, which is and getting the most people into the cinema so that they buy more candy and popcorn.
You operate in 50 countries and you produce the software in around 6 languages as well. What sort of challenges has that presented for you as a company along the way?
We've just kind of, I guess, just done it piece by piece. I mean, we were very lucky in that one of our first customers was in Argentina. After we did Village, Village opened a circuit in Argentina and asked us to come and provide the systems there. And that was very early on, and Argentina's, obviously, it was Spanish with a very complex tax regime. So very early on, we altered our software to be configurable to work in different countries, and so we were lucky to have that now. If we'd tried to do that now, it would be an enormous task, but back then we didn't have a huge amount of software and it was much easier. And then simply, we've always just, as people have called us up from around the world, we've usually just tried to go and get their business, because once you get a piece of business in one country, you can generally follow it up with more business in that country.
And do you have teams that effectively fly into a customer and provide all of that on-the-spot consultation development process?
The software is fairly packaged, and so most people can just take it and run with it, but we do have consulting teams that fly around the world, although we now have offices in London and Los Angeles and Shanghai, and we have a network of resellers, about another 6 resellers in different countries around the world that handle all of the remote areas for us. But we have customers in places like, we have 2 customers in Mongolia, we have customers in Nigeria and Kenya and Ecuador and all over the place, running lots of different languages. So it's pretty diverse.
Yeah, because you produce the software in about 6 languages at the moment?
Yeah, we officially support 6 languages: English, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese. But we also have an ability for the customers to craft their own language sets. And so, for example, we have customers in Lithuania who run the product in Lithuanian. We don't support that. They do that themselves. Same in the Czech Republic. So there's different language sets. Bulgarian, that we don't have any knowledge of, really. The customers do that themselves.
One of the features of the entertainment sector is the growth of home cinema, and I wondered whether or not that perhaps is going to potentially intrude on growth rates in the future.
Yeah, television was going to kill the cinema, and VHS was going to kill the cinema, and DVD, and then home theatre. But actually, I think to a large part they're symbiotic, and in fact research shows that the people who have got really great home theatre setups are actually some of the most strong moviegoers of all, because they're just interested in film, and sometimes they want to see a new release. Still, there's a great thing about watching a big new release like a Batman or something like that on the big screen, and 3D has made a big kick in terms of admissions, and there's still the social element. Movie going 14 to 24 is still a big part of their target market, and those people don't have home theatre systems, and they're going to the movies for different reasons other than just the technology that's in front of them. It's about a social experience.
Obviously, this is a competitive space. You've managed to own the New Zealand market locally, but I'm thinking about the US and so forth. Where does the competition lie in those particular markets?
Oh, we've got competitors in almost every territory that we operate in. None of those competitors operate like we do on a worldwide basis. We are the only company that I know that sort of addresses this market worldwide. But in every market, we've got good competitors in China and in India and the US or Germany or UK. There's competitors everywhere. The US is very competitive in particular. Probably half a dozen or more people doing what we do, and some of them are very good.
This must give you a lot of market intelligence, though, isn't it? I mean, you know the movie trends around the world. Is that something that creates any value for you as a separate part of the business?
Look, I think it actually creates value for our customers, which I suppose in turn creates value for us. So innovations that occur in India can be brought to bear in Canada, or something that's pretty cool that might go on in, say, Mexico. We can take that into the UK. So in effect, our customers get the benefit of a worldwide network, and we always say we've got an R&T department of 2,500 cinemas, and because they're the ones who are always coming to us and say, could we do this, can you do that, so I think there's a real benefit to our customers in that.
You do all your own software development in-house. There's been no temptation to kind of offshore that?
No, we're an intellectual property business. We've got a really good, strong staff here in Auckland. It's about, I think there's 75 staff here in Khyber Pass, and then about another sort of 50 around the world. And a lot of those staff have been with us a long time, and it's that depth of knowledge. And anyone can write software. It's actually having that sort of knowledge about the industry that you're writing for. And so we've got a lot of people very experienced in cinema. And just offshoring it starts to break down what we're trying to achieve.
What's your sense about this opportunity that exists for New Zealand? It regularly gets talked about. New Zealand has this ability to take on problems and problem solve and identify niches. So from your experience as somebody that has kind of worked through this whole process, what's your advice and what do you say to somebody who's got a clever idea in a niche that they think could potentially be a global application?
Yeah, I think you've just got to get in and do it. I see a lot of people spending a lot of time planning, and I'm not trying to downgrade planning, but essentially in the end, it's a bit like thinking that you're going to learn to sail a boat by reading a book. In the end, you just got to get in the boat and sail it, because that's how you're going to find out about it. But New Zealand companies I think we're very good at doing a lot with little. Often, in the New Zealand market, the returns themselves in the New Zealand market are not huge, and so we have to learn how to do that on a limited budget. And I see, some of our colleagues in the software industry who are doing very well, achieving enormous things that perhaps US investors don't believe that they can actually do. Just in terms of, they think, what we can do with a few $1 million, just they would think, oh, you'll burn that in 2 months and then you'll go out of business. And in fact, with a few $1 million, most New Zealand companies can do quite a lot.
Yeah. And finally, Murray, what sort of goals have you set yourself as a business for the next 3 to 5 years?
Up to this point, we've been focused on cinema companies who own 20 or more screens. So that's not 20 or more sites, but 20 or more screens. So that might be, say, 3 8-plexes or 2 10-plexes or something like that. But there's a vast number of cinemas around the world in that sort of smaller area. And so what we've done to address that is we've been working on a cloud-based software as a service offering for Vista. We've named it VZ, which is kind of short for Vista Easy. And it's all available across the internet. And so we've just been working on that for about 18 months. We've got about half a dozen customers in Australia and New Zealand as a first up set of customers, and we're taking that to the world now. So that's going to be a big one for us. There's probably 30 or 40,000 cinemas around the world that fit into that category of small 1 and 2 screen, individually owned, and so we're after that market.
Are there other opportunities for that point of sale? Because that's the technology specialty that you've got, that could also apply beyond cinemas as well.
Yeah, I mean, cinemas have been changing a lot recently, and you've seen people starting to, do quite upscale food and beverage, sushi, delivery to seat. We walk into a cinema and there'll often be, coffee bars and alcohol and everything on offer. So inside of Vista, we've built an extremely strong food and beverage offering, particularly in what I would call the sort of quick serve fast food type environment. So we've got potential there to move that out into the wider food and beverage market, and in fact some of our customers around the world are in fact using Vista in coffee bars and other like sushi outlets and that they own but run outside of the cinema.
Well, Murray, an amazing business, and boy, you've really achieved some fantastic success over that time. Has it surprised you actually how this business has grown?
It kind of has, in a way. I guess you grow and move along a path, and you don't always see where that is going to lead in the very beginning. But we're really proud of what we've done to build, a strong New Zealand company with being a force around the world.